right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to our FDI Table Talk. As I mentioned before, I really love having these because it gives us um, idea behind, having discussions and conversations and actually questions from the previous FDI live event. And so it just gives us time to encourage more discussion on each topic. And so um, it's it's really nice to be among colleagues. And so I really welcome you all. Our last event was Spring 2, and that was a presentation titled The AI Vision Committee, Forming the AI Vision for Academics. And what we'll do to start is we'll have a short review of what was covered in the previous presentation, but you are welcome to ask questions in a moment, or you can post them in the chat. But what I will do is go ahead and start with just a review of what we discussed last time. And if I can get, oh, here we go. Sorry, my slides are, okay, here we go. So just a little background information. So in April 2025, the Provost Cabinet expressed a desire for faculty-driven vision for AI within our curriculum at the Dallas campus. And so in response to that request, a vision team was created and formed, consisting of Emmy Ammirati, Dr. Eileen Ayala, Bernie Chalmers, Dr. Sandra Cleveland, Dr. Tiffany Dahlman, Dr. Scott Zelf, and Dr. John Weiner. From that committee, we have two members leading our conversations today, and that is Emmy Ammirati. She is the Assistant Director of the ACU Online Writing Center, and Dr. Tiffany Dahlman, the Program Director for the BS in Christian Ministry and Spiritual Formation, as well as the Director of the Academic Programming and the Center of Vocational Formation. And so we have two great advocates for us in terms of this AI Vision Committee. And so I want to hand it off to them and so they can talk a little bit more about the strategic vision as well as the triple virtue framework, and then open it up for questions at the end. So I will pass it off to Emmy and Tiffany.
Thanks, Stephanie. I can't see Emmy on the screen. We're all in little squares at the top, but I do also see that Dr. Weiner and Dr. Self, or at least are in this meeting as well. So we're all here to answer any questions that might come up because we addressed different aspects of this when we came together through our various engagements with AI and our areas of concentration. But it is important perhaps to review the purpose of the vision that wasn't to articulate policy for program directors, it wasn't to develop a list of specific do's and don'ts, but rather to address a vision, like it says in the name, AI and pedagogy, how faculty could integrate AI in teaching as a topic of instruction and a tool to support learning, the ethical and practical use of AI. I know I presented a theological vision. Dr. Weiner talked about some ethics and benefits of that, guiding principles for responsible use, and then alignment with mission and values, how AI can support ACU's mission from everything vocational formation to our commitment to Christian service, which is beyond their graduation and here as they are equipped for what God has called them to do. So, Emmy, I think I can pass it to you. Slide 4 was going to be covered in review as well.
Yes, so as a basic summary, we created a triple virtue framework grounded in three concepts: personhood, compassion for creation, and courage. For personhood, using lovely language, as God's beloved, created in God's image, the virtue of personhood, existential and relational, and therefore the tool of AI should be imbued within the curriculum in such a way that students learn the value and prominence of volition, creativity, and experience. So we want to recognize everyone's individuality, agency, the stuff that makes them God's beautiful creation and in God's image. Secondly, compassion for creation. As God's beloved, created in God's image, the virtue of compassion for creation, and therefore the tool of AI, should be imbued within the curriculum in such a way that students learn the value and prominence of service, mercy, and beneficence. We have a responsibility to help students learn to use AI in ways that advance our mission to join in God's work in healing the world. And as we looked at this, this was where Dr. Weiner's discussion of kind of the caveats versus the benefits of AI came into play. We want to make sure that we're teaching everyone to use it responsibly and in a way that's helpful versus in a way that damages our environment or others, or other living things around us. Finally, there was courage. As God's beloved, created in God's image, the virtue of courage, and therefore the tool of AI, should be imbued within the curriculum in such a way that students learn the value and prominence of creativity, innovation, and imagination. We have a responsibility to help students learn to use AI in ways that advance rather than stifle expression, engage new problems, and foment new possibilities. So this is when we are taking, it's kind to be an extension of personhood. We want to ensure that people are courageous and bold to use AI in these positive ways. I was in a meeting with some of my coworkers the other day, and it kind of organically involved this wonderful metaphor of we want our learners to become chefs with AI who can make these great meals, not someone who can take AI and use it to heat up, highly processed food in the microwave. It's two different possibilities. And we want everyone to become those courageous, adventurous chefs, not the microwavers. Although I guess microwaving has its time occasionally when you're pressed. But so those were our the three virtues that this framework was based on.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. That's really great. I'm thinking about that now, like ways we use shortcuts with AI and how sometimes that might even be appropriate, but we're seeking for nourishment. We're seeking for food
Mhm.
for our students to equip them to learn how to cook these basic meals for their well-being. Before we go to questions, with this in view, because much of this was covered in that theology, we summarized three things that AI should enhance as we think about that food metaphor, maybe in nutrients and minerals. That AI should enhance the personhood of self, that image bearer's reflection of God in the world that's distinct from machines, what makes us unique, that AI should enhance the goodness of the incarnation in other people. How can AI be used to help others that our students are going to meet in their vocations? And AI should enhance that function of personhood. We talked about this outpouring, kenosis, God pouring out creativity, God pouring out power and equipping into us, that we could respond to with fear, or we could respond to with too much excessive power, or we could respond to faithfully to courageously push against the chaos of the world, to partner with God to bring about good in creation, humanity, and interpersonal relationships. So if there's anything else we can cover to review what we presented the first time, let us know. Otherwise, Dr. Wanamaker, I think we're ready for questions.
Okay, I will open the floor up for questions if anyone has any.
I have a question. Um, Thanks again for the summary. This is really insightful to me, and I know you guys did a lot of deep thinking work to create all this. So thank you. I'm not sure if this question was asked last time, so forgive me if it was, but um, just because you and this vision team spent so much time working through this framework and vision, I'm curious if your perspectives, your personal perspectives shifted at all, changed, grew, or was just reaffirmed. So if you could reflect briefly on that, I would be curious.
Yeah, I would imagine that I might have been the most skeptical in the room. Brandy Chalmers also was a bit skeptical, and I think it's because we're situated in undergrad. So our engagement with AI and students is different than at the master's or doctoral level. It seems to be much more rampant in a copy paste, extreme shortcut practice that's very pervasive, especially where I'm in the gen ed world with Gen Ed Bible. These are courses students aren't always passionate about taking or see the purpose in, so they're defaulting to it. So I was coming into the conversation more jaded, I think, than others. And through our talks together, and also as a one who is interested in theology and our commissioning this function of personhood, right there in Genesis 1 to take care of creation, to reign and rule over creation in a way that brings about life. It was very, very sensitive to how AI is using up water and energy, and how might that work with our call to function as priests in the in-between of this space. And I think the conversations with Dr. Weiner were especially formative for me because of healing. When I think of spiritual formation in our vocational formation mission, it talks about healing. How can we help students understand that they are working with God's work of healing in the world through their vocation? And of course, Dr. Weiner's work is very on the nose with that. In precision medicine, it's all about healing. And there's so many advantages, so many ways that AI is bringing about healing in the world that we could not do before. That was just impossible, and so much potential for good. So it wasn't that completely erased all of my concerns about what AI is doing to our water resources specifically, but I was able to see so the breadth and depth of opportunity for AI to help us as people with our hands to partner with God's work of healing in the world, to bring about not just survival of life, but abundant life in humanity when used responsibly.
For me, I think that the conversations actually reinforced perspectives that I already had, in that I see the usefulness for it as a tool, as long as we can balance out the negatives, um, and ensure that humanity is prioritized, that our humanity as, well, from my perspective, as writers or as creators, are that is prioritized. And I think that the triple virtue framework really encompasses a lot of conversations and thoughts that I was already having based on how we use it and have explored it in our context, especially. Um, because we see it in the Writing Center from undergraduate use up through our doctoral users. Our fingers are in every layer of learning in the university. And I think there are caveats and great opportunities at all levels, as long as we keep our eye on it. And I will take a slight moment to go off topic. Julie knows that I was so excited the other day. One thing that extremely bothers me as we are using AI is that we can't get rid of it when we don't want to use it. She's laughing because if you are doing a Google search and you don't want the AI summary at the top, if you type your query, a space, and then minus AI with no space between the minus and AI, it will not populate the AI summary. And therefore, I'm not using the water and the electricity every time I Google search anymore. So we have to find these ways to move bravely forward, but use our creativity. And this is courtesy of my brilliant son, who figured this out by reading Reddit, but he knew it was a concern for me. He said, "Mom, look at what I found out." So I am so delighted that I'm no longer running the water and the electricity every time I do a Google search now. We just have to be careful.
I've got a question. First, of course, thank you for your work. Valued. And as I look at the triple virtue framework, and with AI should be imbued in all the three descriptions there, what, how do you see the work you have done and where ACU Online is going on how AI implicates our course design and our in-course activities to kind of carry out that imbuing and saturation, if you will? What conversations or thoughts might you have that we can be considering from an instructional design standpoint?
I can begin with that, but it might be interesting to hear what others are doing in their courses as we bring forward this framework. A question I'm bringing now, having been through these conversations, is this use of AI in the course honoring the personhood of the student and the personhood the student is going to meet in their vocation? And is this use of AI life-giving to the person in the vocation and the person that they're serving in their future vocation? An example of that would be in this pastoral ministry course that I do, asked to write a sermon in there. And I asked them not to use AI in that because that would be skipping their engagement with the text, skipping that very personal engagement with God in the text as they write the sermon. But there was an older assignment in there that asked them to plan a church event. And it was a pretty big event in connection with the community. And it was asking them to put together a 6-month calendar of activities, the things they would need to do for this event to go off in a way that is honoring and life-giving for themselves and the community. Um, and that was all by hand. I did introduce AI into that. Like AI can very easily help you put together this calendar so then you as a minister are free to dedicate more time in pastoral care to the people in front of you, to dedicate more time to the word. That seemed to honor the personhood of everybody. If you're a minister, event planning is probably not your trained skill set. So it would help for that. And it's life-giving. So it seemed to honor the framework, and it was a way to really give a gift to the students for themselves and for those that they're meeting. Does that help, Scott?
Scott, I think that's an awesome question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up on that. How do you keep the students from just copying and pasting that organizational thing? How do you make it life-giving for the student where you're still hearing their voice in it and not just copying and pasting it from AI?
Yeah, there's certainly follow-up questions with that where they're having to defend this thing that AI put out for them. I had them notate where there's human touch points in this. I wanted them to show me where they were checking it. Um, yeah, I think that would really vary, Kathy, by the assignment. That there's a lot to explore there at the program level for each PD.
We did discuss extensively that the way these things will be incorporated and applied will vary, not just by like level of learner, but the discipline in which we're working. I will say that having seen so much of the curriculum as I work with students or try to create materials in the Writing Center, one of the neatest things that is being done at all levels is people are creating assignments where they ask AI a question and then the student is asked to critically analyze the accuracy of the output or consider, what's good and what's bad about this information that the AI has brought back. Now, of course, I was one of the first ones to say, well, they can just take the AI response and then ask the AI to analyze the response. But one thing that a conscientious student would be doing, you would be able to tell the difference between the AI's writing and the student's writing in the two different pieces of work. The patterns of ideation would be different. The patterns of expression would be different. So hopefully students would take the opportunity for an assignment like that to actually learn, which would be enhancing their personhood, making them realize how we can apply AI in a way that is good versus bad, because it is fallible, and also having the courage to be themselves and be creative as they use it. That to me is one of the most useful assignments. And I think that's important because at a foundational level, if we teach them first that it's not always reliable, even those who are then more inclined to use it for more microwaving purposes might be less likely later, because they'll have this moral and ethical and logical perspective of, wait, it might be wrong. But in the direction that the world is going, I have this discussion with my clever son who found the minus AI. The reason he found the minus AI is that he is very anti-AI. He does not like it. Those 16-year-olds who think so deeply about the world around them because they're at that internal conflict stage. But I told him, you're going to have to learn. Unfortunately, the world is taking you in this direction, and we need to control the path that we're taking individually and collectively versus just being swept along. So I think one reason to give everyone the tools to use it is just that we don't want to get it taken a direction that we don't need or want to go. So we need to teach my 16-year-old that he's going to have to deal with it, and he just needs to learn to do it in a responsible and productive way.
Dr. Weiner, were you saying something about?
I was just going to say that I couldn't have said it any better than I think you and Emmy have said it. The technology is not going away. And I keep going back to something that Sir Ken Robinson said in one of his TED Talks, that people we're training now will be retiring in the 60s, 2060s, 2065, 2070. And we don't even know what the world's going to be like in 5 years. So how do we as educators train them? And the content is going to change. In my field, it changes weekly. Maybe in your fields, it might change more slowly or faster. So we have to teach them how to critically think. And because the content is going to change and we have to teach them how to think, that allows us to use AI as a foundation to build harder questions. In the same way that when calculators came out, they didn't ask the same questions on a chemistry test. They asked harder questions that required the use of the calculator. So I think we'd be irresponsible if we didn't teach them. I think Emmy said it best, how to use it responsibly for humanity. When they go out in the real world, they're going to encounter other people that have been trained extensively from their universities in the use of AI. And if those two are supposed to write a white paper for their boss, the person who has AI is going to do it faster and maybe more completely. Yes, absolutely, we need guardrails, and absolutely, we need to train them ethically and morally how to use it so that they don't cheat. But we have to train them how to use it.
Tiffany shared in the chat here. Another help at undergrad level, requiring citations with page numbers from the course material only, and using the rubric to hold them accountable to that. It's helped tremendously as we teach them to use AI responsibly, to honor personhood and creation, while also learning what we need them to know. That's some great advice there. Thank you, Tiffany.
I really like those suggestions. I think that building in an extra layer of accountability by, for instance, using the optional APA standard of including the page number for paraphrases, is the students may feel that's a little extra work, because I read that in the book and I know it's in there, so maybe I don't need to find the page in order to answer this part of my question, and it's going to take me more time to do that. But at the same time, if they're able to use AI in the assignment for other things, perhaps they're trading one set of time for the other, or one set of thought for the other. And well, obviously from my perspective, I don't think forcing people to interact with their materials is a bad thing at any time. So, but that's a strategy that can be used at all levels for accountability. Because one thing that I believe we reinforce quite well is you're responsible for this as a person, what you put out. And there are ramifications, not just that your grade's going to be bad, but ramifications for um, showing who you are as a person and for your own personal responsibility for learning and service to others. And if a page number reminds them of that every time they have to put that page number in, frame the use of page numbers that way when you present it to the students. And every time they have to go get a page number, they're going to be reminded of why they're doing that. And that way we can instill those good values into them.
I would chime in here that just because Tiffany brought up the rubrics, that's probably the area that we've had the most success with faculty who've partnered with us to kind of redo their rubrics. So if you've ever put in a prompt to AI and you're worried about students copy and pasting, you will find that often the first go around with AI is not a very well done effort, right? So rather than trying to chase the students on if they used AI or not, we are making the rubrics better so that if the student did use AI and if they did copy and paste, then the student's going to fail that assignment anyways because their rubric grading is going to be bad. But if a student did use AI and then did work with that content enough, which is, I think, what we're trying to get at here, right? Where students critically think with the tool, they rework it, they add in their own thought, they keep working and working and working it. Even though they used AI to help them, the output is high enough quality where the student had to invest some real time with it. And now they get a good grade on that activity, which is kind of maybe in my bold opinion, how it should be, right? Because like the student who goes in the workplace and spits something out for their boss with AI is going to get in trouble if it's terrible and the numbers don't make sense. The boss is going to be like, what the heck, right? Versus a student who used it appropriately, fact checked it, did all their things. Now they're using AI correctly, ethically, all those things. So I would really encourage you all to look at your rubrics. We're happy to do that with you in kind of that redesign work. But it's made a huge difference for especially I know like Tiffany, who's right, and Stephanie, they've got huge, gen ed sections of Bible 101, Psych 120, right? Hundreds of our students are taking it. It's impossible to chase down AI in all of those situations. But instead, I don't want to speak for you guys, but it seems like it's helped the faculty focus more on just grading the assignment rather than chasing the AI.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, we had more than 700 students go through 103 this past year. I mean, there's no way they can keep up with all of that. So working with the ribbon, it's also helped this me, often myself, really think about the required resources we're putting in there. What do we really want them to read? And to get to Dr. Self's point in the comments, where are diverse voices being put into here? Maybe not so many resource, but being very careful about what we really, really want them to engage. Because I know they're going to turn to AI, whether I want them to or not, it's part of the assignment or not, that's going to be part of it. So what am I saying? This is priority. This is what you really need to know when you go into this vocation to honor the people you're going to meet. And then in the rubric, and not just in that last 5 point line of the rubric where it used to be, you've done citations correctly, but every part of the rubric, every section, did you engage the content material for this course with page numbers? Next section. And did you engage the course week's material for this section with page numbers? So it's this worked in motivation to be engaging these resources that we've decided are truly essential with each part of the assignment, that it just self-motivates them to not use AI unethically in a lot of those ways. It's been very helpful.
Tiffany, we're getting some requests to see samples. Are you okay if we share out some of the examples you've done in some of your courses?
Sure.
I the the part of what I mean by marginalized too, Tiffany, I'm with you on the on we need diverse voices, and part of the problem with AI is that it's reflecting our biases back at us, right? The other thing that concerns me is, the downside of a microwave dinner is that you have a bad dinner. The downside of using AI in a sloppy way is that we become vassals of what AI produces. And that's the scary thing. That's the personhood part that gets lost. And I don't lay awake at night worrying about students cheating with AI because they've gotten away with something. But I do worry that there's a time coming where folks have given their agency over to something else that is becoming increasingly powerful. And we don't want that to happen. On the other hand, as we teach them to leverage this tool as it becomes increasingly powerful, it can also be used for good or evil. And we want them to use it for good. So there's a lot of danger and opportunity on this hand. On this hand, there's a lot of danger of folks being marginalized. Right now, marginalization happens, socioeconomically, racially. I think there's going to be a new layer of marginalization that we have to be very, very careful about. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. And that's why some of you who have heard me say, hey, I want to talk about the no AI policy. That's what's going on in the back of my mind is how do we keep students from becoming victims of microwaved meals? Because it will harm them in the long term.
I think it all comes down to instilling the student with these values or teaching them in the right direction, to borrow some biblical language. For instance, I work a lot with our Alpha Scholars and students with disabilities through the Writing Center. And there are ways that AI can make their load so much more accessible by helping them find particular information in 300 pages of reading for the week. And for someone with organizational or reading challenges, that saves them hours and hours. They're still engaging with the material once they find it, and they do still need to work on strategies for finding it independently. But in our rapid fire 7-week courses, if they're trying to get their work done, having something that points them to read these pages is extremely helpful. And I contrast that with because I see two types of students using AI, who one would consider marginalized groups based on their status. They're either using it to do the work because they don't understand it and they're giving up their personhood to it. They're not trying. They're putting the question through the AI and they're putting the answer on the paper. And it's often incorrect, often misaligned, but they've learned from from various world forces that maybe they can't do it. So they're going to let the AI do it for them just so they can get through. But then there are other students who are using it in these responsible ways to help them achieve the growth that they want to, just as a scaffold to getting there. Because I can easily tell a student, look in these pages of the textbook, or they can put it into an AI or Notebook LM or something. And Notebook LM is actually great because it will summarize the material But if you hover over it, it shows you the original passage from the PDF that you uploaded or the website that you linked. And my most dedicated students with challenges, they consistently hover over it and they try to compare the summary to the text. So they're actually using it to enhance their learning and their skills. But that comes from something that's deep inside them. Instead of having this learned helplessness of I can't do it, something based in these virtues or people they have encountered along the way has compelled them to use it in this other way, a more productive way. And I think that's why focusing on these virtues was just such the best way to ground this, because it comes from what's inside us and how we perceive things, our decisions. And that applies to our practical uses.
That's great. Thank you, Emmy. We are almost at the end here. Are there any other questions or thoughts that anyone would like to share? I think we have some comments in the chat here.
Dr. Wanamaker, just a thought, and that is, I can't understate how important and valuable this framework is. And it is so helpful in all aspects of what we're doing. It's helpful for me from a design standpoint. But I think what's also been really helpful in this session is having, like Tiffany, you've done such a great job, Emmy, everyone, just shaping the conversation using the framework that has given us handles to see how you all have fashioned this in your conversations, but have given us a lot of handles to continue to use the framework as we go forward. So thank you for the work on this, and thank you for today. It's been very valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would also, I mean, Dr. Self did so much with this. I see several of you who are going to the Christian Scholars Conference in June this summer, and I know Dr. Self is doing a paper on personhood and some of these ideas. So there's other areas of conversation to continue on. That theological foundation to this around who we are as an institution, as believers, and how it informs these decisions about machines. Is in many ways unique to us and special in an area where we can really speak into it. Dr. Ayala, I mean, just that we have so much wisdom among us around how to do this in a way that is faithful, that it excites me.